Good morning. Welcome back to Mr. News Inktober. Today is Inktober the 5th. I'm actually recording this video on the 4th, but I'll be uploading this video on the 5th. The prompt for today is Blade. So, Blade is the prompt for today. If the prompt for today is Blade, my first thought when I first saw the prompt list, because last year I did a bunch of characters. And so my first thought when I saw the prompt list was, ooh, I'm going to draw Wesley Snipes from the movie Blade. But so far, I haven't drawn characters. All right, so there's 1 through 3, where I did like a seascape that continued across. And then on number 4 for radio yesterday, I just drew a radio sitting on a table. Which, come to think of it, I probably should have given a little bit of a shadow under it on the table. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now because oops. Yeah, because if it's sitting on a table, I did like cast shadow things going on the device itself, on the radio itself, so it only makes sense to also add. Yeah, there we go. That makes it just 9,000 times better. Like, it's amazing how much it needed that. Anyway, Blade. Today's prompt is Blade. I thought about drawing Wesley Snipes from the movie Blade, the half vampire thing. That was a really cool movie. I love that movie, by the way. Not recommended for children. But then at the same time, I thought, one of the things that I used to love doing back in high school, middle school, back when I was a kid, was just make up my own like fantasy swords and knives and stuff. So I thought, why not just do that? Like, how do I want to approach it though? Do I want to be horizontal with them? Do I want to do them vertical like they're in a rack? I don't know. Anyway, I used to just make it up like if I was like as if I was making weapons for a fantasy movie or fantasy video game or something. I am not liking that shape at all. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to have some fun, kind of going back to my roots on that. While I do this, I guess I could ramble on some more about computers. That's what I did yesterday. That's a topic that typically tends to excite Mr. New. Mr. New is a computer nerd. I absolutely enjoy all that kind of stuff. I've been building my own computers since I was a teenager. I'm not liking the way that handle is turning out. As a matter of fact, I'm not liking the way that blade is turning out. I think, you know what? The way that blade was turning out looked more like a good axe blade instead of a like sword blade. So anyway, yeah, so I've been building my own computers since I was a teenager. Way back in high school. Gosh, I think I was 13 when I had my first computer, and then, the very first upgrade that I ever did to a computer was buying a graphics card so I could play video games, of course. And that was probably when, how old would I have been? Maybe 14 or 15? Or was I 13 when I did that? I don't know. Anyway. Since then, I have never. So that computer that I had at that age was a compact desktop that we actually in my house had two computers. Before that, we had two TRS-80s. If you don't know what a TRS-80 is, it's probably a good thing. Those things were, well, for their time, they were amazing. I grew up, from a young age, using the TRS-80, which had it had two floppy disk drives, and I'm not talking about. They were the big 5.5-inch floppy disk drives. They weren't the little small floppy disks. They were the big ones. Anyway, it had two of those floppy disk drives. It did not have a hard drive, so it didn't have its own. Well, I guess it had a built-in operating system of some sort, but basically, like if you wanted to run a program, like let's say Frogger, the video game Frogger. If you wanted to run that game, then you would have to use two drives. One drive, two floppy disks. One floppy disk was had the programming language of called BASIC, the old programming language called BASIC. And then the second floppy disk drive would have the program, which was written in BASIC, which we had to write ourselves because, we weren't going to go pay money for the game. So my brother and I had one floppy disk that had the programming language, the BASIC programming language. And then we had another floppy disk that had the game on it. And it was funny because we would program a game. We would spend all of our time copying a program. We had a book with 100 different games, and so you would spend the time to copy line by line, copy the code, and then you wouldn't actually have time to play it, because it'd take a whole day to copy the code, and then you go eat dinner, you go to bed, then the next day you get up and you're like, oh, I can play the game now. And one line of code would be wrong somewhere in the 150 or 250 lines of code. One line would be wrong. And so the game wouldn't work properly. And so you'd go back and you'd look for that one line of code. You'd get frustrated, you'd erase it, and you'd start doing something different. That was kind of how our weekends operated for a long time. And anyway, now we had a bunch of fun with that, and we probably, I think it was around the time I was 13 is when we actually, upgraded and got what at that time was a modern desktop computer. Like I said, it was an old Compaq. I want to say, it wasn't, I think it was like a 400 megahertz, maybe 500 megahertz. It was, but it wasn't super fast. It wasn't the most expensive machine in the world. Even at that time, it wasn't the fastest machine in the world. If you were to see it today, you'd be like, oh my God, that's so slow. But at the time, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't by any means the fastest machine, but it was so much more powerful than anything I had ever seen before, and I was floored. I was blown away by what was capable with that machine. Just coming from the TRS-80 to that machine. And so I started playing, at that point, I started playing games like Wolfenstein 3D, games like the original Doom, games like Quake and StarCraft 1, and those are kind of the games that defined my early video gaming development, if you will, my early interest. I mean, we also had like the old school NES, so The Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, the originals of those games. Those defined my early days of console gaming. But in terms of PC gaming, Quake was my big one. Quake was the reason I bought my first graphics card. So I think there was a period in time when the computer was like a family computer, and then I think eventually we got a second one, and then one of them became my computer, and the first thing I did with that computer was I bought a graphics card. I remember it was a Riva TNT graphics card. And I was blown away by the 3D games that I could play on that. And I, honestly, still to this day, I'm impressed with what was capable with that limited technology. But as I look and I see how far that technology has come in, 15, 20 years, how far that technology has come, it's mind-boggling. And it's mind-boggling in terms of the coding, the software aspect of it, what software is capable of doing. It's mind-boggling in terms of the hardware, what the hardware is capable of doing. It's mind-boggling in terms of the speeds, the amount of computing power that modern computers have. I mean, this cell phone has like 10,000 times the computing power of that machine that I ran when I was a teenager. So it's like, I don't know, that 10,000 is it's probably not an exaggeration. It's a made up number. I don't know what the exact amount. That'd be a good question. I should look it up. But the amount of computing power, just the raw power that is available at the touch of your fingers every day is insane, when compared to what I grew up with, and especially when compared to, the last generation. Like, what did my dad grow up with? There were no computers back then. And even for me, like when I was, I'm watching kindergartners at school learn how to log into a Chromebook, right? When I was in kindergarten, I didn't even know what a computer was. Like, they didn't exist. Computers as we know them today didn't even exist when I was in kindergarten. So yeah, anyway, it's just amazing what technology has accomplished over the years. And, I feel blessed to have been a part of that, to have been able to grow up in a time when, there's that much technological advancement happening. I don't like how curved that blade is. And so, yeah, in yesterday's video, I think I was talking about things like, graphics cards and processors, and how just this year, the leaps and bounds that have been made in computing power are absolutely astronomical. And it's also interesting to see, it seems like there's a power shift, or a balance shift because the when I was growing up, all through my high school and college days, and all of the computers that I have ever built, which has been, a few over the years, all of the computers I have ever built, I have gone with AMD processors. My old Compaq was an Intel processor, but I didn't build that machine. That one was given to me. But of all the computers I have ever built, I have always gone with AMD processors instead of Intel. And the reasoning for that is they have always been the budget option, the cheap option. And I have always had a low budget. But now, this year, AMD processors are surpassing Intel's processors in raw computing power. And that blows my mind. Like, that's never been the case. I can't believe that. Anyway, even if they weren't beating out the competition, even if they weren't beating out the Intel processors, when I built my machine, my current computer, the one I'm using right now. When I built that machine in 2019, I went with an AMD Ryzen 7 processor. This time, not just because it was the budget option. Like, I was willing to pay what I needed to pay to get a machine that would do the job. But I bought an AMD processor that time around because bang for buck, right? It wasn't necessarily the best processor, but it was for the price. Like, it was one that would do the job at the lowest price, if that makes sense. Like, I could have gotten a better Intel processor at that point. But I would have spent a lot more for just a little bit more compute power. Whereas now, I'm not convinced that Intel has anything to offer that's better. So it's like, not only are AMD processors fast enough to do the job while remaining less expensive, they are also beating the competition. They are faster than their Intel counterparts at the same price range. And in some cases, faster than a more expensive Intel processor. And that blows my mind. The fact that AMD has been able to achieve that. Now, whether it stays that way or not, who knows? Right? We'll see what Intel's next batch of processors look like. And, whether that carries over to their graphics world, their GPUs, remains to be seen. This year, NVIDIA launched their new 3000 series GPUs, which, despite a sort of botched launch, those are absolutely incredible. And absolutely incredible at a price point that is still, graphics cards are always going to be expensive. But compared to previous generations, price for price, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling that the 3070 that's about to come out, the RTX 3070 graphics card that will be coming out later this month, is faster. It's a $500 GPU that's faster than the last generation's $1,200 GPU. That blows my mind. Anyway. All right. Do I leave it there? Do I do something with the background? I kind of want to do a little bit of hatching. To give just a little, oh shoot. I should have waited for that to dry. I smeared the ink there. Too late now. Too late to fix that. Oh well. Do I leave it the way it is? No, I don't leave it the way it is. That's the answer to that. I definitely want to come in and do some work on some work with hatching, but I don't want to overdo it. That's the thing. Or stipple maybe, right? These are such small drawings. It's hard to stop your hatching from overcompensating. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, that's turning out quite nice. Yeah. That looks a lot. Let's do some more. Anyway, yeah, so I was talking about graphics cards and stuff. Right, so AMD has been the budget option for CPUs. But now they're competing strongly with Intel, and if not beating Intel in a lot of ways. Okay? And I'm wondering if the same thing is going to happen in the GPU world. If AMD makes the same leaps and strides in the graphics world that they have made in the CPU world, then they would just dominate the market. There would be nothing to stop them. If they can beat the price to performance ratio of NVIDIA's 3000 series processors, GPUs. If they can beat that price to performance, there will be no stopping AMD this year. Well, that remains to be seen. So, but I look forward to seeing the answers. And, I'm strongly considering purchasing a new graphics card at some point this year. Once those are all released, once those all are out and in the world, and we see where the chips fall. Because my current graphics card is several generations old at this point. It is a GTX 1660. Now, to be 100% honest, I don't currently play any games that need anything faster than that. It's honestly fast enough for everything I put it through. But as I am putting my computer through its paces, doing my virtual teaching on my computer, I am finding all the areas in which it is sort of bottlenecking. And first step, I think I mentioned this yesterday, first step is to upgrade the storage. My SSD, my current setup is a SATA SSD for main operating system, and a hard drive for storing files. And my plan is to upgrade, or add rather. I want to keep what I have, but add to it a an M.2 NVMe SSD. The reason, so when video editing, right? When you're editing a video, when I've recorded all this and I put my multiple video files into Adobe Premiere and I'm trying to make all this look good. The actual editing process, sitting down and editing those clips, putting all that stuff together. That process does not, during that process, the bottleneck is the speed of my SSD. During that process, I am bottlenecked on the read-write speeds. So like when I'm scrubbing the video, like going, I've got a timeline and I want to, pick different points in the timeline. It's taking too long to get the information from the hard drives and SSDs. So I need a faster storage for that. But then once I've got that upgraded, where's the next bottleneck? The next bottleneck after that is the GPU. Anyway, I think I'm going to call this quits as is. Should I do something in the background? That's the question. Should I make a black background? I think maybe just because of how dark all of my, if all of my pictures so far have had these dark backgrounds, I think just on the calendar, this one's going to stand out like a sore thumb if it's that light. So I think I am going to go ahead and darken up the background. Should I do the whole background though? Or should I do... I was trying to think, it wouldn't be like a table. I thought about drawing like a weapon rack or something that these were hanging on, but that doesn't seem practical. So, let's just go for let's just go for it. Anyway, yeah, so first thing to upgrade is the SSD. I want to get 1 or 2 NVMe SSDs. Once I have that in place, I honestly, for video editing, for productivity, the GPU is most important when you are compiling. So not the actual editing process, but after you've edited a timeline and you, click the encode button, that process uses the GPU quite heavily. Now, normally, I don't sit around and use the computer while it's doing that compiling, that encoding. Usually, I will queue up whatever videos need to be compiled, and then, bedtime, press play, press the encode button and go to bed. Or, that's like if I have a whole bunch. I mean, honestly, like the other night, I had my computer encoded 15 videos, each of them 30 minutes long, and it only took like 2 hours, if that. But even that, like it's not like I'm sitting there on the computer while it's doing all that. I walk away. And so the question is, do I really need to upgrade my graphics card if I'm not even going to be at the machine while it's doing that job? And so upgrading the graphics card would make it so that the computer does that job faster. And then the question is, do I even need that job to be done faster? Is it worth spending money to have that job done faster? Or would it be better to spend that money on a faster processor, a faster, CPU? And I'm not sure I know the answer to that question. I mean, honestly, the answer might just be don't spend the money, because everything else I have works. I definitely need to upgrade the storage, though. That's a point of contention for me. The more editing I do, the more it becomes abundantly clear that my SATA SSD and my hard drive are just not fast enough. And it would make my workflow a lot easier to upgrade those. But then the other question about upgrading the graphics card is games. Like I said before, I don't currently play any games that would require a faster graphics card. In fact, I don't, I haven't played any video games at all in the last week. I've been so busy with work. My computer has been at work all week. And even when I brought it home for the weekend, I've been working from home all weekend. So how much time do I actually have to play video games anyway? Do I have enough time to play games? And if I do have enough time to play games, are the games that I'm playing games that need a fancy, expensive graphics card? Or would I just be spending money on a graphics card so that I could spend more money on games that I'm not going to have time to play? So these are the hard questions in life. And I think the answer is I eventually will upgrade the graphics card, but it doesn't have to be right away. And in the meantime, I need to focus any upgrades that I make in the meantime need to be focused on productivity, 100% on productivity. So what can I do to speed up my workflow on video editing? And other than the SSD, other than getting NVMe storage, other things that make a lot of sense for productivity would be a new mouse. The mouse that I'm using right now is 17 years old, and it's amazing that it still even works. But it's a Logitech gaming mouse from I think it's 17 years old. Maybe that's an exaggeration. Maybe it's more 15 years old. Or 12 years. I don't know. Anyway, it's old. It's at least 12 years old. I'm trying to remember exactly when I got it. It was given to me as a Christmas present. And I know for a fact it was before I got married, which was in 2008. So at the very least, it's 12 years old. Anyway, my mouse still works just fine, but in terms of productivity, a mouse that has multiple extra buttons is really useful. Especially as I am getting better at using Adobe Premiere Pro and Adobe Audition for sound work and Adobe After Effects. I'm finding there are a lot of presets and a lot of things that a lot of keyboard shortcut type of things that would be quicker to do if I just had one button on my mouse, right? Just like not have to move my hand. I know that sounds like lazy to say that, but if you're making 6 videos a week, right? One for kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, right? That's K through 5 is 6 grades. If I'm making 6 videos every week, plus Inktober videos and anything else I'm doing for my YouTube channel, every time, if I got my hands on my keyboard and mouse, anytime I have to move my hand from this side of the keyboard to that side of the keyboard, or move my hand from the mouse to the keyboard, anytime I have to move my hand, it takes, a second or two, and I have to look down at the keyboard to see it, to see what I'm pressing, right? If I can keep one hand on the keyboard, I don't have to look down to see what I'm pressing for that hand. But if I'm moving that hand to the other side, or if I'm moving this hand to the keyboard, it takes a few seconds. And if that's happening a dozen times or 24 times per video, and I'm making half a dozen videos or more every week, that time adds up. And so having what we call macros, or a button set up to do a job, right? It would speed up productivity. I would be able to go through the editing process faster. And then also along the lines of and now, to be fair, macros and stuff like that can be set up on the keyboard as well. But, on the keyboard, in those programs, like almost every button is already mapped to like do something. So having extra buttons like thumb buttons on a mouse or pinky buttons on a mouse would just make setting up those macros easier. And, the scroll wheel on the mouse, right? One of the things that I am doing all the time when I'm editing videos is, scrolling the wheel to go left or right in the timeline, or if I'm holding the Alt button with this finger or with this hand, and then I scroll, that zooms in and out on the timeline. And I am doing that all the time. And Logitech makes a mouse where the scroll wheel has something called infinite scrolling. So like you zip the scroll wheel and it will just keep spinning on the mouse. That seems like it would be extremely handy for what I do. So yeah, upgrading my machine is probably, it's going to be first NVMe storage, so super lightning fast SSDs, and second, getting a mouse, getting a productivity-based mouse. Also, something more ergonomic would be good. The mouse I have is, well, let's just say it's not designed for people with carpal tunnel syndrome. It's, back then they didn't, well, I mean, I guess they, they were aware of it at that point, but, mouse manufacturers at that point, like, ergonomics were not nearly as important a thing as it is today. Like today, you go look at, like, you just go to Best Buy and look at the mouse options that they have on the shelf, and like half or more of them are ergonomically shaped. But back then it was like you paid extra for an ergonomic mouse. Anyway, yeah, so I'm gonna upgrade my storage, upgrade my mouse, and then after that, maybe a graphics card, maybe not. I think that would be more of a fun upgrade rather than a productivity upgrade. To be clear, it would speed up the encoding process by quite a bit, but that's not a process that takes a lot of my time. And to be 100% honest, it's not even a process that takes a lot of my computer's time. So it's like, is it worth the money to make that process any faster? And I think, the answer to that could be yes. It depends on how much of this virtual teaching I continue doing. I'm certainly going to keep doing some, because even if I go back into the classrooms face-to-face with the students, I'm still going to be in a hybrid mode where I have to make virtual lessons for some of my students. And also, I plan to keep making YouTube videos. So, I'm, even if my workload, even if my video editing workload is drastically reduced, I'm still going to be making a lot of videos. I'm still going to be doing some. So, it's, there's certainly something to be said for just having the tools that do the job fast and get the job done. And, that's where I'm at. I'm trying to streamline my life. I'm trying to make all of my processes, everything I have to do on a day-to-day basis, I'm trying to make it streamlined and quick so that I can go about my merry way. too close there. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, I'm glad that I did the outlines there. I think after seeing that, it does make me kind of want to go back in and do just a little bit more of my stipply hatching kind of stuff, especially on the blades. And then I think I'm going to call it done. Yeah, I'm going to call it done. Alrighty, so that is Inktober Day 5 Blade. Let me zoom it out to where you can see the whole calendar so far, how it's all coming together. And yeah, if you like this video, if you like that drawing, share it, thumbs up, do what you do. If you want to see me continue for the rest of the month, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because I'm going to be uploading a new video every day for the rest of the month. Hope you guys enjoyed it. See you tomorrow.